Hello everyone, welcome back to the table. Welcome back specifically to December 16th, 1944, where we'll be fighting the Bulge. Again! Yeah, so I did muck up some very important things at the beginning of the playthrough last time. But, you know, that's how I learned. I really appreciated the comments that I got, which really pointed out a few things that I did wrong, which I think is going to make a huge difference when we actually start up now and we hit into the actual game again. And what I wanted to do was just kind of point out a couple of those errors. First mistake was, I remember mentioning a few times that the stacking limit was only 3, but I did have at least one spot where I had like 4 infantry units in it. So that was a no-go. The other like huge thing, and I'm trying to get back to the page here, is in the rule book on page 8 and 9. It really clears out the difference in what the game means by turns. Okay, so I was forcing my arbitrary experience with other games when it comes to a turn, and I was applying it here by mistake, just, you know, mixing games together. So there's really 2 things that you need to consider. So let me just kind of swing over here. I got mark counters set up. I didn't want to put the book out too much. So let's see if we can kind of look here a little bit together. So on page 8 specifically, it does a very good job of this. So it's, trust me, the game makes sense when you read and apply it correctly. The mistakes are all me. So when it said that this was a simple game, yeah, it is. Well, I shouldn't say simple, but it's not complex. The problem is Eddie's brain is complex and overthinks things. So if you follow this specific sequence of play, which they have here on the play aid, so it's not like they didn't tell you what it was for sure, even right down to the bottom with special rules for December 16th. So start of the day, you do a time reset, so you're going to place the marker at the 5:30 mark, activation reset, remove the cubes, check for supply. It even tells you the days that you're going to start checking for supply. Tells you when you can check for reinforcements, the German fuel check, replacements, German commando operation. Okay, that's start of the day. Then it has the turn. Then it's initiative, activation, place your activation cube. You can pass. On days you have initiative, you may pass your turn if you have no units remaining to be activated, or if your opponent passed on his last turn. Otherwise, you must activate a space with at least one of your not yet activated units. Okay, yeah. Passage of time. Each time the player with the initiative completes a turn by activation or passing, the player advances the turn marker. And then you end of day. Okay, why is that important? Well, because in my mind, when I was thinking a turn, I was thinking a turn included all this, all the day of activity and all the activations. But it's very clear that you understand that what you do at the start of the day is then separated from the turns. So if it helps, think of a turn as activations. So your activations, as they go back and forth, that's what you're doing. So if you don't, like me, I was confusing turn with the concept of the whole day advancing, and that's not how it works. So what you can do to help out with your time marker, so I have here up in the corner, I don't know if it will help me at all, but now that I've talked about it and have it in my head maybe. So I'm going to put the day marker on 16 because that's what I'm playing to. Here's the German surprise turns. I mean, I could put it here, but I'm going to leave it on the 16th. And then it's like this. You're going to go, your time is going to advance. Here's a surprise turn, German surprise turn, German surprise turn. Then the time tracker jumps over here to the first 5:30 mark, which is just slightly right there. And at that point, you're now playing the 16th. That's not what I did. I was playing as if it was a whole day, going through, advancing the clock. I mean, I was playing my own game at that point. I made my own Battle of the Bulge game, and it didn't work out very well because the results didn't make sense to me. I'm trying to think. That was probably the biggest thing right there. I think someone pointed out one other thing. I can't remember what that was off the top of my head, but I think that was the bulk of it. The one thing too that I want to do differently this time, when I started before, if I advanced or had like 2 infantry, which we're going to have here in just a second when we do the surprise German, when they attacked this 14th Cav, for example, what I did was I just took 4 dice because they had the same numbers to hit. So just as a convenience for me, it was just rolled the 4 dice. But the rules, and I did it later on, but the rules kind of state you do it per unit, and then you can stick your activation cube on them and whatnot. So I'm going to try and remember just to go ahead and roll for each unit separately. Oh, and that was the other thing I forgot. You can't... What is this? The terrain can only reduce an amount of hits equal to yours or less than your strength. Like so, for example, here in Losheim, there's 1 reduction for the terrain, and this unit has 1 strength point. So I can reduce 1 strength point. But let's say if let's give you another example here. I'm trying to find something that's got less strength than the cover. Well, I don't have one. But let's say, for example, I'm going to flip him for a moment. He's got 1 strength point, and this can reduce 2 since they own it. But it will only actually reduce 1 because he's a strength 1 unit. So it's pretty easy to wipe out, which is important because in some of these cities you're going to start wearing down some units. I think it just gets easier over time to take them down. But I hope I explained that well, but that's my understanding. I think that concept confused me a little bit first. Oh, here we go. Here's a good one right up here. So for example, he's got 1 strength. That can reduce 2 from the city, but in actuality I can only reduce 1. So 1 strength units, I think, will be a little bit easier for me to eliminate. Alright, I think those are the biggest things that I mucked up on. I would say I'm sorry, but if you're new to the channel, this is how I learn to play games. I read the rules, I lay it out, and then I just start playing and see how all the pieces fit together. And with the gracious help of the community, you point out some rules mistakes, and then I can come back and try to make sure I get that implemented in so it's a better experience. So thank you all for your participation in that. So we're going to take a sip of our Sprite Zero Sugar with a little bit of watermelon flavoring in it that I added. That still doesn't taste good. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first surprise turn, or activation in this case. Now, it's still the same thing. Only the Germans get to activate and move. And it totally skips the Americans. Like the American doesn't get the, like I was having last time where the Americans could do an attack or something. Like that's not even part of it because, again, that's not what a turn is. A turn is an activation. And the turns normally alternate activations. So when it's on to like December 17, December 18, yes, then the Americans can do stuff. But in this first part, it's just Germans. So I mean, I would like to advance this group still, but because we got really strong defenders here, we're going to do it anyway. So I'm going to advance them. Boop, boop. Now, if I'm doing this right, then it does say, though, that because you activate a sector, you're not activating like just them, you activate a sector. I'm going to put a reminder activated cube on him because technically he's done. He can't move, but he's been activated. And I'm going to put my little reminder cubes that this is where the current action is happening. And so they've moved. Now we can do the combat, and the defender will get a chance to roll dice, but they won't have an American turn where they get to, you know, return fire and become the attacker. But you do have to roll your hits against everything, and then they will get their defender attack. But we have the advantage here, because we are starting with a roll of 3, and because we are on a surprise turn, we get to add 1, so we're going to hit on 4s, and then we have supporting artillery, so we're going to hit on 5s. let's go with that. I'm pretty sure that's all I have currently. Yeah, it is tough. You know, why is that bad, you might ask yourself. We probably won't do any damage to this infantry unit at all, but there is a chance that we might be able to take out a cav unit. No, because even if I get 2 hits, that reduces 2 hits, and you distribute hits evenly. Yeah, that ain't going to work. I honestly don't think I can attack up in the north. When I think about it, because only rolling 2 dice. See, if I was rolling 4 dice, because it doesn't say combine into one roll, it just says you roll for a unit. So individually, these divisions are coming at the city defenders, you know, from different sectors. So even though they are attacking together, they're attacking in their, you know, maybe designated sectors, and so it's hard to get at the defenders. So I'm gonna skip that spot. So what we're going to do is just kind of look down the map. Now obviously you can go to anywhere on the map. It's not like you have to work your way down, but I'm going to do that right now until I get a feel for how to game the game here. What we're going to do is actually go ahead and activate these 2 spots. Since we're already in combat, we'll do that. Let me see if, yeah, it said if you're, yeah, normally the tanks wouldn't get to act unless the tank is already in a spot with Americans. So we're going to activate, I think, this central area here. So we're going to do a sneak attack here. So we're going to go bloop, bloop, to remind me they're going to be active. And they're going to get their 5s because it's surprise turn, artillery. It is 2 dice. And it can reduce by 1, so there's a chance that we could take him out. Well, we got 1 hit, and the woods did absorb the 1 hit. So I've got to get 2 successes if I want to take out that cav unit. So we're going to say he's done. Normally, again, you would, after this is done, then you would put the cubes on, but since he's done, I'll just put the cube now. We need under 5s, so come on. A 1 and a 10. Now, the difference you might say is, well, how would it be different if you rolled 4 dice? Well, if I rolled 4 dice, well, I still failed. But the chances of you getting hits in one roll, I think, go up quite significantly. So what we'll do is say, okay, they attempted to take out that cav unit and they couldn't. Also, if you're new to the channel, I don't usually roll dice very well. We're going to activate over here. So I'm advancing my German surprise turn to 2. And now here comes this one. And it's same thing. Oh, hold on. The defender roll, right? I got to roll for the defender. So the defender gets 1 die, and he's hitting on 3s. There's no modifier for them, because the modifiers for defender is if there's armor with the attacker, then it's like -1 to your hit roll, and then but if all the attackers crossed a river, then you get like a +1, but they didn't. They already started here. And then there was one other roll, like if it's an elite unit, I think. Let me see. Defender gets armor. Oh, clear terrain. This isn't clear terrain. So really, he's going to get 1 die on a 3. So 4. Okay. Not much happening here. A lot of gunfire. So we're going to pop over here. So we're hitting on 5s because, again, it's the surprise turn. We have artillery support. 2 dice. So 5s or less. But, I don't think that's going to work either, because the -2 for the woods, that's going to absorb 2 hits. Let me see something. Let me pause for just a moment. Okay, I just solved a problem I created. This is fine. So basically, what I did wrong, and I did it here, is even though they roll separately, all of the hits add together. So he had a hit, he had a hit. So technically on that combat, we did have 2 hits total. So even though they scored 1, well, yeah, even though they scored 1 and they scored 1, together that was 2 hits. Now, after I have the total hits on my little tracker, I can subtract 1 for the train. Boop. Now, here's a decision I guess you could make, is that is one hit left, so I could take him out. Now, if you retreat, okay, and maybe I'm doing this wrong, but it says if you retreat, you reduce the hits by 1. So instead of losing him, I'm thinking I could retreat him to Malmedy instead. Retreat. So that would take the one other hit I had, and that gives us 0 successes. Now, why would that be okay with me? That would be okay with me because now we have taken control of that spot. And in essence, for when the game starts, the actual day, I would have this guy out of supply because he can't trace a line of supply route anywhere. Okay, so let's say that was cool. So now if I come over here, this is still fine too, because even though there's a -2 here, if I roll well enough, that will absorb the 2 hits, and I still might end up with 1 or 2 hits left over if I roll well enough. So we're going to go ahead and try fighting here to whip him down a little bit. So we're hitting on 5s. Let's bring this in. Try not to mess up the counters too much. Here we go. Okay, so that clearly didn't work. And now if he has a go, that clearly didn't work. Alright, so we're not doing so well. Or at least I thought they had each scored 1 hit, but anyhow, okay, so that would be the second surprise turn. Then I advance the marker. I think we're getting the hang of it now. Oh yeah, this is feeling good now. Okay, so here, we're going to go here because we've got armor and infantry already. So the armor can attack. So armor, because they're elite with that little red diamond, they have to hit starting on 5s. So they're going to get +1 for the artillery, +1 because it's the 3rd surprise. They're rolling 4 dice, so they're hitting on 7s. That's not an elite defender, so we're okay with that. Okay, here you go, tanks. 2. Okay, so we're starting out with 2 hits from the tanks. Good job. Way to go. And then the infantry. Put my little reminder cubes here. You went. And they're going on 5s. Okay. 1 more. So that's a total of 3 hits. So even though we rolled them individually, they accumulated to 3 hits. Now we subtract 1 for the terrain. Boop. Now if he retreats, that would reduce the damage by 1, but there'd still be 1 point of damage left over. So if I'm doing this correct, that is eliminated. And I'm going to go with I did it correct. So I'm going to take out the 112th Regiment of the 28th Infantry. I have no idea how to read that. Sorry, I laugh only because listen, I know I'm here just to play a game, but you got to remember, I play lots and lots of games. My interests in games are very diverse, and so I am not an expert in any genre or time period. And so I'm glad that these have the little symbols to let me know that it's infantry. I have a little understanding of like NATO symbology and whatnot, but if you were to ask me what division specifically that was or its significance in the battle, yeah, I don't have a clue. So please don't hold that against me. I'm just a casual gamer who has an interest in historical gaming, okay? So if I don't know exactly how to pronounce the unit, I do apologize. And again, I apologize for my lack of German. So when I read some of these names, I'll probably muck that up too. All right, now if I've done this correctly, you will let me know in the comments, I'm sure. But that has been 3 turns, or if you like to use the phrase activations. So I will advance my time marker that I showed you earlier to the 0530 of day 16. Now I can look at the sequence of play. So I've got the time marker. I got to remove all the activation cubes. I'm really hoping that that's... I'm hoping those 3 turns... My understanding is those 3 turns is like a separate thing, so I can take their activation cubes off. Because it does say this covers 16. We are now officially on day 16. Then we check for supply, but that's only on day 17. So we get to skip the check supply. We get to skip reinforcement units from the order of battle charts. And we don't have to do the assigned fuel because it's not turn 21. That's what the number and plus means. This is day 20, so we don't have to assign replacement points. And then on day 17 or 18, the German commando operation says once per game by placing activation cube on any one allied unit. So I can do it on the 17th or the 18th. So I have to kind of decide when I want to do that. Then you get into the turns. We alternate taking turns until the day ends. And the Germans hold initiative from day 16 to 22. I think we're on track. So there's no fancy start of day stuff. So we just go right into alternating activations. And this is where I'm going to shift the camera. We're going to start right up here. Now again, you don't have to start at the top of the map. That's just me. So I'm going to do a full out blitz. We got tanks coming in. We got infantry. If I could do music for you, I would do the Hell March from Command and Conquer. Alright. That's 3 friendlies in a spot. So this was activated. So I'm going to get my preparatory. Here's where the action is. They're going to do stuff. Alright. Now we get some dice rolling. I get 6. And the little plus sign makes that 7, so I get 7 dice. So the 12th SS Panzer comes in. Their base of hitting is a 4, plus they get 1 for artillery. But there's a -1 because that is an elite infantry. Let me double check. Yep. Defender includes armor or elite. So it's not armor, because that cav is a mechanized, but it does have elite infantry. So I'm rolling on 4s. 4 plus 1 for the artillery, -1. Let me make sure there's nothing else. It's not the surprise. Oh, actually, all of day 16, we get that special German +1 attack. So I am going to be hitting on 5s. Nice. Okay. So here's my 7 dice, hitting on 5s. Whew, that's still not good. Seriously, only 2 hits out of that mess. I told you, dice rolling is not my strong point. Okay, so that tank rolled. Okay, then we're going to do the 277th Volks Grenadier, and they're hitting on 3s, because they would get +1 for the artillery. They're hitting on 4s. +1 for the artillery, +1 for day 16, -1 for elite infantry. So they're hitting on 4s. That's 1 more hit to apply. Yay. Okay, and then the 326th Volks Grenadier. Nada. Alright, so let's apply some hits here real quick. Well, technically, I could roll for the American Defender because that will make a difference on strength. And I have a separate tracker over on the far end of the board for tracking US hits. So we're going to roll for the Cav first. So the Cav gets 1 die, and they're hitting on 3s. But attacker includes armor, so that's -1. So they're actually going to hit on a 2. So they don't hit. Then the 2nd Infantry Division, they're going to hit on 2s as well, but they get 4 dice. And they scored 2 hits. Oh, man. Alright, very good for the American Defender. Now you can apply hits kind of simultaneously. It's not that big a deal now. So for the American player, it's supposed to be like an even distribution. You're going to take 1 hit before you take another. Now, at this point, because I've got 3, you could say, well, they'll take a hit, they would take a hit, but you can retreat. So first of all, the city That's going to reduce the amount of hits by 2 because they're strength 4. And since there's one strength point, is it a total? Let me just check the rules on that real quick. Okay, so as far as the limitation on your strength reduction based on the strength of the unit, it's the total. So if I only had one unit in here with just one strength point, I could only maximum reduce the number of hits by 1. But since there's 5, there's 2. So I can reduce the German hits by 2 because they're in the city. So 1, 2. That leaves me 1 hit that I need to apply. And you could retreat. And if you retreat, again, you reduce the amount of hits by 1. But I would have to retreat both of these units out, which would give me clear ownership of this spot. They held pretty good, so I'm actually going to go ahead and take a hit reduction on the Americans. That might not be the smartest decision, but that's what we're going to go with because they held out pretty well, and they are in the city, so I could maybe bring reinforcements at some point. So if the 2nd can hold on, they'll be okay. Now, the terrain does not reduce any hits for the attacker, and I did score 2 hits. So what I'm going to do is put 1 hit on the 12th SS because that's the strongest unit, and they can get replacements, I'm hoping, later down the road here. Yeah, that's replacement. According to that chart, it looks like the infantry, or the Germans, only get infantry replacements, no armor. Ooh, so maybe I don't want to take it. I want to protect my precious tanks. But I don't want to wipe out my infantry either. Oh, choices. So we're going to go ahead and take 2 hits to the infantry. Yikes. That's scary. Then that's done. So after the Germans had completed their action, we advance it to 0700 hours. Now the American player would do something. Now he could respond here and attack back, or he could attack in a spot where he might have an advantage, which honestly, looking at the map here, the American player doesn't have an advantage anywhere right now with the start of the game. Nada. At a disadvantage everywhere. The only advantage he's got is right here. And I would say you want to hold on to this spot. What I'm going to do, you know what I will do? Here's what I am going to do. And this is probably, I shouldn't leave places undefended. That city spot there, because I thought about moving up here. Gosh, this is why I need another person, because knowing best what to do. Seeing if I was historically minded, I'd say, oh yeah, I know exactly what the 99th did, but I don't. So I'm just going to guess and rewrite history. So I think what we'll do, go brave or go home. We're going to move the 2nd up here. So we now have 3 allies there. And they'll attack. And just by nature of the beast, since they are all there, they all get to participate in the attack. We might be able to repel the north, shore up that north flank a little bit. All right, let's do it. Now, the defenders in this case, because they don't own the area, they're going to get 1 defense die. Well, one hit reduced because they're in the woods or whatever terrain is outside the city. So let's roll for this here vehicle. Because, well, since they're the attacker, let's see, it's not the surprise day. There's no artillery bonus. The defender includes armor. Yes, so that's -1. We're not in clear terrain. And we're not out of... So he's hitting on 2. So it's 1 die hitting on 2s. Nope. So I'll put a... Already rolled for him. And then I'm going to roll for this 2 infantry there. He actually gets a 3rd die because he's got a little plus sign. So they're hitting on 2s as well. 1 hit. So I'm going to put my American tracker on 1 hit. And then the 2nd infantry, they're hitting on 2s as well. That's a 2nd hit. So they rolled pretty darn good. Okay, then the Germans this time become the defender. And attacker includes armor. No, it does not. The attacker includes terrain. No. And all attackers enter space this turn by crossing. No. So we're just rolling on the hit numbers that we have. So we'll roll first for the armor. Oh, they went. So they're rolling 7 dice and they're hitting on 4s. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's great. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll roll for the infantry. Okay, so they're hitting on 3s. That's 1 die hitting on 3s. It's another hit. And then that infantry hitting on 2. That's a miss. All right, now we can apply hits because it's almost like simultaneous. So we'll do because the attacker was going, so the Americans scored 2 hits. We subtract 1 for the terrain. So that's 1 hit I need to apply. And because these other ones have already taken a hit, I'm going to go ahead and take that loss finally on the Panzer unit. Or I could have them all retreat and not take a loss at all, but we're here now. Okay, so now the Germans, they're applying some hits. Defender gets to retreat, not the attacker, so they're going to absorb this. Because they're attacker, they don't get any reductions here. So we have 4 hits. So first of all, they all take 1, which will destroy the 102nd Cav. They're dead. And they'll take, okay, the 2nd Infantry will take a reduction because they have already suffered 1 hit. So they'll go from 3 to 2. They will suffer 1. And then they'll suffer the 4th hit. And that's all 4 hits. Alright, that was the American attack. So then the time advances again. It comes back to the German turn. And we get to pick another spot to go to. We are going to... I think we're going to take the first SS. Now, if I was going by way of road, I could pop right in here, but I don't want to come in here without some more support. So I think what I'll do is actually just come here and put him as done. And they got a control marker. You know what I should do is actually move here, because then I can put a German control marker. We'll do that. That was the German turn. Okay, so they had, see, you advance at the end. Let me make sure I got this right. You advance it at the end of your turn. Okay, so we took them here. That advanced, they did their thing. That advanced it to 0700. Now this guy moved here, so we advance it at the end. So it's on the 8:30 time now. Okay, now what the Americans going to do? Well, I guess nothing to lose here. I should have activated them next and been the attacker, but we'll go ahead and have him be the attacker. Alright, so let's put the dice cup here. Well, he gets to roll 3 dice, and there's no enemy armor. They're hitting on 3s. Yeah, I should have attacked there sooner. We might... Yeah, because that's 1 hit. Defender does not get to take... well, no, they are the defender. So he's attacking. Yeah, see, that was actually probably a pretty poor decision, because that's going to absorb your hits. So that was actually not a very good... Wasn't smart on my part. But that's okay, because now it's the Germans, and the 150th Panzer is going to join the fray. And they're going to now attack. So all of these become attackers, because they're all together. The only time they don't attack is if you move into an area and they already have activation cubes. They don't get to participate in the attack. All right. Well, they're not bringing much. Only 1 strength point. But they are hitting on 5s because that's not elite infantry or anything like that. So let's tally up some hits. They're hitting on 6s because you have artillery support and it's day 16. I rolled a 9, so nothing there. Then the 2 infantry, so they're hitting on 5s. Well, that's 1 hit. Now I need to score 2 more hits if I want to do anything here. Hitting on 5s because it's day 16, artillery support. I need 2 hits. That's only 1. Okay, so the reason why I needed that last one to get 2 hits is because this is a wood hex. I keep calling them hexes. This is a wood sector, and that does absorb 2 hits because his strength is 2. So he technically gets to take advantage of the woods. All right then, nothing there. That was the end of the German activation, so they advanced the time to the 10 o'clock. It is now 10 o'clock. And the American player, I think the American player is going to, they're going to attack here. So they're going to move armor up. That might not be the best decision either, but you know what? Go big or go home. So the Americans are going to counterattack here in the opening waves. So they're going to have 1 die, 1, and they're hitting on 3s because they don't get a day 16 bonus or artillery support. So that's 1 die. That's not a hit. Then the armor. Well, you know what? They are the attacker. They do get +1. I still rolled really high, but I forgot. The attacker has armor. That is a bonus. No, it isn't. Nope, no bonus for armor. The defender, though, gets a reduction in their base chance to hit because the attacker brought armor. So, never mind. But he's got 2 dice, and he's hitting on 4s. So maybe he'll do something. Ooh, nope, 2 7s. So that was a failed attack into this into the Germans. Now the Germans are going to roll 4 defender dice. They're hitting on 4s. Hear me out. So base of 3 +1 for artillery. Well, no, only on the attack. So actually, it's much worse because the attacker did bring armor. It's -1. So actually, they're hitting on 2s. There's a difference between attacking and defending. So that's 4 dice on 2s. Oops. Get in there. Nope. Nada. All right. Well, they were trying to be brave. Oh, defender doesn't get activated. Yay. All right. Then it goes back to a German activation. I'm getting the hang of this. So the German activation, they could go here now and counterattack, but even better, we're going to bring the armor in. They're going to cross the river. They're crossing at this bridge. There's no necessarily bridge rule just because I see the road. So we're going to pop over here. And now they become the attack. They become the hunter. And now we're going to check it out. 5 dice because they've got a +1. So 5 dice. And because they're attacking, they get to hit on 5s. +1 for the artillery. And +1 because it's day 16. So they're hitting on 7s. But the defender does include armor. So they're hitting on 6s. 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 hits already for the German player. So that was good. I brought forward the good stuff. Oh, you know what? Let me get my activation cubes. I need to... Okay. This guy in Dassberg has been activated. He can go somewhere. If he stays, he still gets activated. Because when you activate the sector, it activates everything. So, I mean, I could leave him there. He can't come across the river here because Only one unit can cross a river section at a time, because you know it takes time to cross bridges. So what I can do is I'm going to move him here. So he's going to push the attack. That's going to stay there. So I'm going to put him as a potential for the future. You're a potential attacker, and you just attacked. Okay, so we'll do this infantry here. 1, 2, 3, 4 dice. And again, we're hitting on 4s because if I add 2 for the artillery and day 16, that's 5. Minus 1 because defender has artillery. So I'm hitting on 4s. Nothing. Oh, man. Okay. Now the defender. Now, the defender here is counter-attacking. So I've got my 3 hits for the Germans. So there's 1 die for them. They're hitting on a 2 because the attacker brought armor. Nope. And then the infantry, well, no, that's armor. They're hitting on 3s because the attacker brought armor. Yep. Oh. Nada. All right. So we have 3 hits to apply. I guess instead of counterattacking, we could retreat, right? But we're going to, we stayed and we fought. So first of all, we do subtract 2 hits, 1, 2, because they're in a city. So we apply 1 hit. We're going to apply it to the armor. Now, this guy here needs to conduct his attack because he moved in there. So he gets 4 dice. Now, this is interesting. I'll tell you in a second. So he's hitting on 5s because artillery and day 16. And is there a plus because the defender is in clear terrain? +1. So he's actually hitting on 6s. So that's 4 dice on 6s. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 hits. Lucky me. Now the defender, he gets a couple bonuses. His bonus is 4. 1 because the attacker is in clear terrain. So that's +1, so he's hitting on 4s. And because all of the attackers did cross a river to get there, he gets another one. So he's hitting 5. So it's 1 die on a 5. Can he do it? He does. All right, that's good because the attackers don't get to reduce for terrain anyway. So he does suffer a hit. But bad news for him, there is nothing there. So again, I probably should have retreated with him because I think, let me check here on the rules. So the way I'm reading the retreat, it says when you are, applying hits. So it sounds like to me they would get to attack back, like they get their attacker. So it's not a matter of do you stay and fight or do you retreat. So it sounds like they still get to do their defender firing. But if they decide to retreat, they can reduce the amount of hits by 1. So let's just take a moment here. I have 3 hits to apply. I could retreat these both up here because only one can cross the river here essentially, and then one could go up here, but I don't want to split them. But I could move them here. That would reduce the amount of hits by 1. But they would still have to apply 2 hits. So since they still have hits to apply, they're probably going to be better off just letting the city absorb some hits for them. So that's what we'll do. So they're going to lose off 2 hits, 1, 2, and then I still have to apply 1. So retreating wouldn't save them. They would still have taken that step loss, but then they'd be up in this city instead. So they might as well just stay here. Then I have to apply 1 hit to the attacker. I'll apply it to the infantry because I can get infantry replacements for the Americans. I think that's legitimate. So we will now advance the German turn marker. It is now 11:30, and the Americans get to do something now. I think I will pass as the American player just because I've only got I could retreat him. Actually, let's activate this spot because he's going to come up here. That now puts 3, although very weak, defenders in that spot. So we'll say he's done. Technically he is an attacker, but does he have to attack? So let me check that. I won't pause you this time. Yeah, I will. I'm a slow reader. Alright, now it does say combat is mandatory. So if I move up and it's contested and there's enemies, he would have to fight. And that would be pretty much suicide at that point. So what we'll do is we're going to retreat. We're just going to move. I'm going to move down here. So now we've got armor support. And they're in some woods here. So that's the Americans. Alright. Not sure those are the smartest decisions, but that's what we're doing and we're sticking to it. Okay, I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. So we... Now, this is another one I might be a little spotty on. So it says when you're crossing a river, if there's enemy units, or I don't know if it's contested. Let me just check that rule. Alright, so I caught another mistake I made. So it says a unit moving along a road may cross a river and continue moving. However, only one unit may cross a given river boundary into an enemy-occupied space per turn. Enemy-occupied. So if it was blank, I could take roads and cross. Can I only cross rivers at the road? Yeah, a river may cross a river boundary into an adjacent space. The road just means I can keep moving. So what I was thinking here is moving this, the Panzer layer, and go 1 space, 2 space. Because it's not enemy only occupied, it's contested. If it was enemy only, it said like the road would be considered erased. So I wouldn't be able to cross in there because I could only move 1 space. But since it's contested, I can push this armor up, cross the river, and I can now assault. Now, because he is the only one that came across and they're already activated, he'd be the only attacker. That's a risk. Let's do it though. So let's put the preparatory. He's going to take some return fire, but that's okay. I think he can handle it. And he might get to pull somebody out of that city there. You know what? Before I forget, I'm going to put, they own that one. So I'm going to put a little marker there to remind me. So, okay, 4 dice plus 1. So he's rolling 5 dice. Hitting on 4s. But he's got artillery support, and it's day 16, so that brings him up to 6s. Does it matter if defender? Yep, defender has armor, so he's hitting on 5s. Okay, 4 dice, well, 5 dice at 5s. Nothing. That sucked. Sorry, Germany. Well, now the defenders, infantry is hitting on 3s, but the attacker brought armor, so it is -1, but he did attack across the river, so that penalty cancels out. So he's hitting on 3, so 1 die on 3. Nope. And then the armor is 1 die on 4. Nope. So just terrible rolling all the way around. Nothing there. Okay, that was a German activation, so the time track advances. It is now 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I have a unit up here that moved from Losheim. Oh, he did a retreat, so he wasn't activated. But I do have an armor and a scout. They're going to stay put. Alright, so what can we do here? I've got 2 Volksgrenadier units. Oh man, we're going to bring some pain down here. I could, but I think these both can cross the river because it's, well, it is enemy occupied. It's not contested, so only 1 can come across. So I don't want to do that yet. That's going to be hard to get in here. We'll have to like take this spot and come over. This is a really well defended spot, I think. So I'm going to have a hard time pushing in. I'll have to push units in. It's going to be hard getting people in here. Well, if I can move one in, then it would be like contested. Then I could bring these in. So I might have to sacrifice a unit just so I can bring some people in here later and try to whittle this down. Or wait and see if I can bring some armor down. I have here, let's bring some armor down. They're going to go 1, 2. He's done. And they can't bring the infantry with them because it's already got 3. So he's going to go just 1 space. Actually, he's going to push up. So he's going to take that. Probably should have moved the armor there too, but I want to bring armor support. And then we're going to try and push in here at some point. So we're going to put control here. They own it now. Alright, so that was the German. So it's now 2:30. Americans will pass. I think I'm in positions where I want to be right now as the German player. I have a couple of units I'm eyeballing right here what to do with. And they could both cross over here and start pushing the attack, but that's kind of risky. They got armor. Although we need to take advantage of our day 16 bonus, so let's do it. Let's push up, see if we can cause some trouble. So they're going to be potentially activated. Okay, that'll be the last opening move for the German player. So he's got 3 dice. They're hitting on 3, 4, 5. There's no armor for the defender, so we're hitting on 5s. Where can you see that? And we'll put it right there. 3 dice hitting on 5s. That's 2. Okay, we're off to a good start there. And then the same guy, or same numbers, 3 dice hitting on 5s. Let's get some more hits. 2 more hits. That's a grand total of 4. Then we're going to check for the American defender. It's 1 dice hitting on 3s. You got a hit. 1 hit. Then the armor is 2 dice hitting on 4s. Alright. Now, we have 3. Oh, they negate 3 hits. 1, 2, 3. Luckily, I had done 4 total. So we're going to reduce the armor in the city by 1. Now I do have to reduce one of these units, so we'll go ahead and reduce him. Into the German activation, it is now 1600. And, oh, we got to apply one, yeah, I did apply the American hit. I got to remember to move my little trackers. There. So 1600. Well, now I could, since they're here, guess we're going to become the attackers. Oh, you're moving into my territory? Well, prepare to die. You probably can't see the dice roller in its entirety, so let me just shift the camera. There we go. Everybody's a winner. Alright, so 1 cav. Because they're the attacker, they get all the bonuses of the attacker. It's not the surprise. There's no artillery. I don't have elite infantry. We're not clear terrain. Alright, so really it's just the listed number. So 1 die hitting on a 3. Nope. And then armor. 1 die hitting on 4s. Nope. Then they're the defender, so they would have gotten a defense bonus from that terrain anyhow. We probably would have been fine. But they're going to roll 2 dice, and because they're the defender, no bonuses, but there's a penalty because the attacker brought armor. So they're going to be hitting on 2s. Nope. And then the other unit there is defending on 2s as well, but they get 3 dice. 1 hit. The attacker does not get to apply terrain. Now, we could retreat, and we would have to split out to different areas, or just take the hit. Because retreating will reduce it, but then they would lose Malmedy. I mean, they could then hole up in Yupin, because the attacker doesn't get the terrain bonuses. And they both can't cross the river to the same spot. Can they both retreat across the river? Let's look that up real quick. Can they retreat across the same river together? Alright, so with the river, the only thing I'm seeing is if it is an enemy-controlled space that you're moving into. And this is not enemy-controlled, so they both could retreat here to Yupin. Oh, wait a minute, why are they retreating? They were the attackers this turn, right? Oh, so they don't get to retreat. So they just took that hit. I started thinking about something that didn't apply, and I think I probably confused myself. So I did apply, I think I applied the hit there. They reduced the armor. Oh, no. That was my defender one. One of these units has to die, I think. Okay, so because my memory is pretty poor, and I forgot, I remember now, they just attacked, because they were in this space already. And I think my defender rolls did score, what, one hit? They can't retreat because they were the attacker. So even if they retreated, they would still absorb 1. Well, they would reduce the hits by 1. That's why I was thinking retreat. But attacker can't retreat. So we have to take a hit. And this unit already took a hit this turn, so I think the cav will take a hit. Okay, so short attention span. I may have just made a little mistake there and shortchanged the Americans, but yeah. My mind was thinking about retreating to save them. However, they can't retreat because that was their attack. So it would come back. Now, normally I would have passed, right? But since they were together in the space, I thought they might as well fight. So it would go back to the German player. Now, the German player has to activate. If the American player had passed, the German player could pass. Now, I believe it says you can activate a space even if you don't move them, but that's the cost of not advancing them is, I can't use them for later. So what I could do, because that's got 2 in there, is I could just say I've activated him and he stays put. Then we go back to the Americans. The Americans will pass because they've only got, well, so here's the thing. I mean, I could move this armor up and then we will have to go elsewhere because, I mean, this is too heavily defended. I mean, honestly, this is ridiculous now. There's a lot here. They absorb 3. I can only bring 1 unit across. We'll have to envelop. We'll have to come push past and come down. So what we'll do is bring, for the German activation, which we'll then put it here. Okay, that was a German, that brought it to the 1730. Activate this hex. Those guys move. Their activation done. It's now 1900. It's the whole day. We just spent a whole day fighting and moving stuff. Because what I got to do is I've got to come around now, and I feel better about swinging through here and coming around because you don't get. I can bring, if I can fill this up with units, then I can come in and fight that easier instead of trying to cross the river. Because across the river I can only bring 1 person in at a time because it's enemy held. So that would just be really bloodbath for people crossing the river. So we've got to cross back here and swing out. Alright, well that is, hopefully, let me put a little control marker there. Alright, hopefully that was a better day. I think we covered that much better. Clarified a couple rules for myself along the way. I'm thoroughly enjoying this one. Like I said, this is probably my first operational level where I've actually just sat down to play it. And as I get more comfortable with the rules and get more comfortable with you know, some of the nuances, because now we're going to have to do Allied supply starts, check for German commando. So there's some things now that I can take with me as we move along. And I'm really looking at this replacement section. Let me tell you what I'm looking at here, because I'm really worried for the Germans. According to this, replacement points, Germany only gets to replace infantry, no armor, and the Allies. I mean, that makes sense, because what I understand of the Battle of the Bulge is that this was really like Germany's last offensive of the war. If I'm, you know, pretty close to the last, I should say, major offensive of the war. I know that, you know, fighting continued. And so they brought a lot of their resources to the get-go. So they're not going to replace units. They just have to rely on reinforcements, extra stuff to come in, which there is some, but it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot. There's a lot more armor coming over the next few days, but that's why I'm really trying to save the armor losses for Germany, because they don't get replacements, whereas the Allies are going to get some replacements. Looks like they're going to get, during the replacement phase, 1 infantry and 1 armor all the time. So I think over time their momentum can build back up, because they can replace the all-important armor and Germany can't. So this is going to shape up to be pretty interesting. And then just to kind of give you an overhead, that's a little bit of what we're looking like. This actually looks similar to what I had last time, but there's a lot more Americans left on the board than before. But I am definitely seeing, I'm creating a bulge here as well. We're pushing through in the southern sector. Middle sector has kind of stalled a little bit. This infantry was stubborn. I may have probably done something wrong with him, but they have to die. And we did push up in a few spots. But that's kind of how we're looking at the end of the 16th. Awesome. I am definitely digging this a lot more now. Things are coming together. So please, as always, do not hesitate to point out mistakes that I did not catch for myself. Always welcome. And I'll try to include that into the next playthrough. And I'm hoping that will be in the next day or two. I really am wanting to play this every day. I have a little bit of time every day, so I might not catch rules corrections. Oh, you know what? You know, I just figured it out. Just figured it out. The board tells me what they get to replace, so check it out. So on the 20th, Germany gets infantry. The Americans get to replace infantry. Oh. Then on the 21st, they get to replace 1 infantry, 1 armor. 1 infantry, 1 armor. So this is telling me how much they get to replace. So it's not all doom and gloom for the Germans. Okay, that is much better. Now, I'm looking, now that I'm talking this over with you, I'll look this up. But I do have German 14, Allied 5. I'll have to look what that is. Figure out. Not quite sure what that German 12, Allied 4 is. I'll have to look in the rule book. But that's probably something I will have figured out for you by the time we start next game. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, I wasn't even tracking German victory points. I don't think I've killed anything yet that had victory points on it, so I don't think the Germans have any victory points. Unless you get victory points for taking ground, which in that case, I need to go back and check. Yeah, space, victory point, space with a printed victory point value switches. I haven't taken any land that had victory points on it. Space with a printed VP value switches from German to Allied. Nope. Allied unit with starting strength of 4 or more eliminated. No, I haven't eliminated that. Just some. No. 2nd infantry is still on the board and they haven't been eliminated. 3 VP, the first time in game a German unit is in supply in a German controlled space. Okay, I haven't done that yet. Alright, yeah, I haven't really done anything victory point wise. Alright, well, that's enough for me. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm going to try and find it in the rules, but I always have a hard time finding that one specific thing I need. So if you know with what on the tracker German 12 Allied 6 is, I'm sure it's very simple, but off the top of my head I don't know what that is, and I haven't found it yet. So on the tracker, on the turn board, if you tell me what German 14 Allied 5 is, we'll be set, if I haven't figured it out by then. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you later. Bye.